There's something really fun about the way Shirley Jones laughs these days. A low, pretty sound that carries all the beauty of old Hollywood movies with just a little bit of playfulness underneath. At 91 years old, she's as beautiful as ever, her eyes still shining with that mix of sweetness and boldness that made her America's favorite sweetheart. And later, one of its most surprising storytellers. When the interviewer asks, "You've kissed some of the most handsome men in movie history who really made your heart beat fast." Shirley leans back in her chair, a slow smile spreading across her face. "Oh, honey," she says, "that's a tricky question, but I think I've earned the right to tell a few secrets." She lets the words hang in the air, enjoying the excitement the way only a real performer can. "I've been lucky," she continues. "I worked in a time full of men who knew how to make a great first impression. Tall, sure of themselves, impossibly charming. Some of them were complete gentlemen. Some, well, let's just say they pretended to be gentlemen." She laughs again, that musical sound of remembering and playfulness. Her eyes look toward the ceiling like she's watching a movie of memories only she can see. "There were men who could make you turn red from across the room," she says. "Men who'd tip their hat, flash a smile, and suddenly you forgot every word you'd practiced. That was the magic of it. The special feeling, the fun, the secret dance." Then she leans in, lowering her voice to a playful whisper. "You have to remember, darling, I came from the time of charm when a man didn't need to text you. He just needed to look at you the right way. And some of those looks, well, they stayed with me for many years." Her smile turned sneaky. "There were 7 of them," she says, tapping her finger against the arm of her chair as if counting each memory. 7 men who could melt your good sense faster than a spotlight on a summer night. I worked with some, flirted with others, and a few," she pauses, eyes sparkling. "Let's just say they left quite the memory." She sits back, laughter coming again, full of playfulness and grace. "You want names? Oh, I'll give you names, but be gentle with me. I was young, silly, and surrounded by way too many handsome men. One, Gordon MacRae." Shirley's smile gets softer the second his name is mentioned. "Oh, Gordon," she says, her voice wrapping around the name like a loving sigh. "My first main actor, and what a main actor he was." She leans back, eyes bright with memory. "I was barely out of my teen years when we made Oklahoma and then Carousel. He was handsome, sure of himself, and had a voice that could shake the walls. That deep voice, my goodness, when Gordon sang, the whole world seemed to stop and listen. And when he looked at you, well, you forgot there was anyone else on that movie set." She laughed softly, the sound filled with remembering. He had that all-American charm. Tall, with big shoulders, with a smile that could melt butter. But he wasn't just good-looking. He was kind, giving, funny in that quiet way that sneaks up on you. We'd practice for hours, and even when we were both tired, he'd crack a joke just to make me laugh. And when he laughed, oh, it spread to everyone. Her tone gets deeper, a little wistful now. He had this steadiness to him. He made you feel safe. Even when the lights were blinding and the cameras were rolling, he could play the romantic hero without ever faking it. It wasn't acting with Gordon. It was a real connection. Every time he'd take my hand or sing one of those love songs, you'd believe he meant every word." She smiles wider, eyes sparkling. "I was young, easy to impress, and completely under his spell. Gordon had that rare thing, a mix of confidence and gentleness. He could make you feel like the only person in the room even when 100 people were watching." Then she chuckles a little wickedly. "And yes, when he sang If I Loved You, I might have believed it for a second or two, maybe longer." 2. Frank Sinatra surely lets out a knowing laugh before the interviewer even finishes saying his name. "Oh, Frank," she says, smiling like the memory itself just winked at her. "You couldn't work in Hollywood in my day and not have a Frank Sinatra story. Everyone did. He was the center, and the rest of us just spun around him." She leans back, eyes shining. The thing about Frank was he didn't try to be magnetic. He just was. You'd walk into a room, the talking would get quiet, and then you'd realize why he was there. Perfectly neat suit. That little smirk. The cigarette balance just right. He didn't need to speak. He just had to look your way, and the temperature went up 10 degrees. Shirley laughed softly, shaking her head. He was unpredictable. You never knew what mood you were going to get. But that was part of the charm. One minute he was the life of the party, the next he was quietly humming a song in the corner, lost in thought, and that voice smooth and smoky when he sang. You believed him. Every word, every note, it all sounded personal. She tilts her head as if picturing him again. I met him a few times at parties and events. He had this wonderful way of making you feel like you were the only person in the room, even if there were 50 others waiting for his attention. He'd say your name, and somehow it sounded better than when anyone else said it. Her voice softens. Frank had that old-school mix of charm and mystery. You couldn't quite figure him out, and that's what made him unforgettable. He carried a little sadness with him, even when laughing. It made everything he did feel deeper. Shirley smiles, eyes twinkling. You couldn't resist being a little amazed. Frank Sinatra was every bit the legend people say he was. A man who didn't just sing the song, he was the song. And let me tell you, darling, no one ever forgot the melody. 3. James Garner. Shirley's smile softens immediately. Now, James Garner, she says, was the kind of man Hollywood doesn't make anymore. Handsome, yes, almost unfairly so. But it was his gentleness that set him apart. He had that quiet, easy confidence that made you feel safe and seen, even in a town full of mirrors. She chuckles, tilting her head at the memory. When we worked together, what struck me most wasn't just his charm. It was his humor. Jim could make an entire crew laugh between takes, and not the big, showy kind of laughter either. It was the kind that came from timing, wit, and kindness. He had this wonderful way of lifting everyone's spirits just by being himself. She leans back, eyes distant but glowing. He never took himself too seriously, which was rare for a main actor. You'd be in the middle of an emotional scene, and he'd flash that grin, that little half-smile that made you forget you were acting at all. Suddenly, it was just two people caught up in something real. Her tone deepens, soft with love. He had a realness about him. What you saw on screen was who he was off-screen. No faking, no big ego, just warmth. He treated everyone from studio bosses to extras with the same respect. And that kind of goodness doesn't fade. It stays, she laughs. A sound equal parts fondness and remembering. Oh, he was charming. Make no mistake, that voice, that way he'd say your name like it was the start of a secret. I think half of Hollywood's leading ladies had a soft spot for him. But he earned it. Every bit of it. Her eyes brighten. James Garner was the definition of an old-fashioned gentleman. Steady, kind, quietly magnetic. You could stand next to him for 5 minutes and forget every camera, every light. All that existed was the moment. That's what made him special. She pauses, smiling wistfully. He made you believe in goodness. And in Hollywood, that's saying something. 4. Paul Newman. Shirley lets out a soft, almost musical laugh. Paul Newman, she says, and even the way she says it sounds like she's rolling the name across her tongue like a fine wine. You didn't have to meet Paul to fall a little bit in love with him. You just had to see him smile. She shakes her head, eyes glimmering. Those eyes, that grin, they should have been against the law. But what made Paul truly special wasn't his looks, as unbelievable as they were. It was that kindness underneath. He was one of those rare men whose charm came from being good. He didn't need to act cool. He just was. Her voice softens, almost with deep respect. I remember the first time I met him. A charity event, I think. He walked into the room and the whole place just got brighter. He didn't take over the space. He made it better. He had this easy way of making everyone feel seen. When he shook your hand, he looked right at you. Not past you, not through you, at you. That's rare anywhere, but in Hollywood, that's gold. She laughs gently like she's caught up in the glow of memory. And that voice, smooth, calm, with just a trace of playfulness. You always felt like he knew something you didn't, but he was too polite to spoil the fun. He'd crack a joke under his breath and you'd be laughing for hours afterward, wondering how he managed to charm the entire world and still seem humble. Shirley's tone grows more thoughtful. What I admired most about Paul was his sense of purpose. He wasn't just a movie star. He was a man who used it. His heart was as strong as his jawline. You could see it in the way he loved his family, the way he gave back, the way he carried himself without ever needing applause. She smiles, eyes softening with warmth. He was proof that you could be amazing without ever forgetting how to be human. And that, she says, her voice trailing into a fond sigh, is the most attractive quality of all. She pauses for a moment, that signature mischievous glint returning. And let's be honest, no one, before or since, has ever made a pair of blue eyes look quite like that. 5. Cary Grant. The interviewer barely finishes saying his name before Shirley bursts into a laugh, the kind that sounds like champagne bubbles. Cary Grant, she repeats, enjoying the name. Now there's a man who made being classy look easy. The suit, the voice, the way he carried himself. He could have read a shopping list and still made every woman in America swoon. She leans back, eyes glinting like she stepped right back into the golden age. Cary was a master of timing, not just on screen, but in life. He knew when to make an entrance, when to give a compliment, when to let silence do the flirting for him. And that accent, it wasn't just English. It was magical. She smiles, shaking her head. I met him at an event once, one of those sparkling Hollywood nights where everyone's trying a little too hard to be seen. Cary didn't have to try. He just was. You'd feel it before you even spotted him. A charm that wasn't loud, just quietly magnetic. When he spoke to you, it felt like you were in on a secret that the rest of the room hadn't been invited to. Her tone grows softer, almost with deep respect. He had this grace, not just in movement but in spirit. You could see the humor behind the eyes, the kindness behind the polish. He wasn't just sophisticated. He was truly lovely. The kind of man who held your hand like it mattered. She laughs again, gently shaking her head. I remember thinking, good heavens, this man makes conversation feel like romance. She pauses, grinning at her own boldness, then adds quickly, but always with class. Always her gaze drifts for a moment, full of warmth. Cary Grant was the dream. That blend of wit, warmth, and just enough mystery to keep you wondering. You never quite figured him out. And maybe that's what made him timeless. He made romance an art form, and everyone lucky enough to share a scene or a dance with him knew it. 6. Rock Hudson. Shirley's whole expression softens when his name comes up. Rock Hudson, she says with a fond smile, the kind that carries both laughter and a touch of longing. He was as kind as he was handsome, and believe me, that's saying something. She pauses, eyes distant like she's seeing him again through the mist of time. There was a warmth about Rock that you could feel the second he entered a room. Yes, he was impossibly tall, impossibly good-looking, but that wasn't what made people move toward him. It was the ease, the gentleness. He never made you feel small, not even when he towered over you. Her laugh bubbles up again. And that laugh of his, deep and real, you could hear it from across the soundstage and immediately feel better about whatever had gone wrong that day. Rock had a way of making the business, the cameras, the long hours, the pressure feel lighter, easier. You wanted to be around him. She leans in a little as if sharing something precious. He had this presence that was comforting. He made people feel safe, especially women. That was rare in those days. A man who could be both strong and gentle, who didn't need to prove himself every minute. Rock never competed with anyone. He just was himself, and that was enough to fill any room. Her tone softens further, full of warmth. We shared a few events, a few laughs over the years. He was the definition of grace, both on and off the screen. There was no showing off, no sharp edges, just honesty wrapped in charm. You always left a conversation with Rock feeling lighter than when you started it. Shirley's eyes glisten, her smile wistful now. He had a beautiful soul. That's the truth of it. He made you believe in kindness, even in a business that doesn't always reward it. And that's what people remember most about him. Not just the movie star looks, but the heart underneath. She sits back, her voice turning soft and certain. Rock Hudson was one of a kind, a true gentleman, the sort that made you feel lucky just to have shared a little piece of his world. 7. Robert Redford. When his name comes up, Shirley's whole face lights up. Robert Redford, she says slowly, almost enjoying it. Now there's a man who defined cool without ever having to say a word. She smiles, a gleam of mischief dancing in her eyes. He had that California ease, sunshine in human form. The hair, the smile, that quiet confidence that didn't need to announce itself. You know how some people seem to glow from the inside? That was Bob. Her voice grows warm and thoughtful. He was the kind of main actor who didn't just steal the scene. He made it deeper. There was smartness behind those eyes, a stillness that made you lean in. You could see he was thinking always, even in silence. That's what made him different from so many others. He wasn't performing charm. He was charm. Shirley chuckles softly. We crossed paths a few times over the years. Movie openings, award shows, those rare gatherings where everyone looked polished but nobody really wanted to stay long. But when Bob walked in, suddenly everyone perked up a little. The room just shifted. He had that effect. People stood a little straighter, smiled a little wider. Even the most jaded Hollywood crowd couldn't resist him. Her gaze drifts for a moment, lost in fond memory. He was polite to a fault, soft-spoken, gracious, and a little shy, which made him even more impossible to resist. There was no faking about him, no swagger, no act, just that natural warmth that comes from knowing exactly who you are. She laughs again, that unmistakable Shirley sparkle still alive after all these years. And those eyes, she says, wagging a finger with a teasing grin, they were dangerous, not in a wild way, but in that slow burn, thoughtful way that sneaks up on you. You'd be halfway through a conversation before realizing you'd completely forgotten what you were saying. Her smile softens into something wistful. Robert Redford was the last of a certain kind of main actor. Thoughtful, artistic, endlessly good. He reminded you that real charm isn't about noise. It's about presence. And goodness, she says with a twinkle, doesn't go out of style. She leans back, satisfied, her laughter filling the room once more. There you have it, 7 men who made the movies magical and the memories even better. They were charm, grace, and playfulness rolled into one. And, darling, she adds with a wink, wasn't it fun while it lasted?